Hello and welcome to the Move Your Business Forward podcast. These talks are hosted by Rob Boll, founder of Evoke Management and CEO of International Leaders UK. He'll be talking with experts from both these companies about issues that affect SME companies today.
Today, I'm joined by Shaun Orpen, who is the International Managing Director for SCAD Software and also an executive member of International Leaders UK. So Shaun, great to have you with us today. We're going to be talking a little bit about IT and specifically development of IT software. And the real thing here I'm keen to talk about is your kind of take on what are the options for anyone that's probably not IT background, running a business or on the management team, the leadership team of an SME, thinking about developing IT asset for the business can be quite a daunting thing and can also be a massively expensive thing to start, and even more expensive if it doesn't go to plan. So I want to have a bit of a talk about that and find out what your take is from your background and experience of what options there are. So any immediate thoughts, Shaun, to share?
Super. Thanks, Rob. But I think the first thing to say is that today, every business has become a technology business. Even if you didn't set out when you originally started the business that it would be, that is the reality of where we're at. And yet, I think, as you mentioned, for many business people, the whole thought of having to build technology brings people out in a cold sweat. It's a different language, and for far too many people, it's become one of these areas that is not only very expensive, but as you rightly say, very often that there are failures around building technology. But it is this foreign language that makes it very difficult for people. But the good news is, I think there are some different options that people can look at.
And talking about those options, I mean, the most basic thing that any company can do is literally get off the shelf software, right? You don't have to go and start coding anything yourself. You can look out there and there's various things that people have developed, which, they're solving problems other companies have had. But I think what we really want to focus on here is when that's not good enough, or you want something more customized or more bespoke, or something that's going to end up being an asset for the business. I think it's important. So I guess the two ways there is to outsource something, in-house resource that you can hire and you've got to manage and give direction to. And the outsourcing thing can be a kind of fully outsourced project, or I think what seems to be more sensible is developing a long-term partnership with someone. And that's what you're involved with, Shaun, right? Long-term partnerships, right?
Absolutely, Rob. And just to add on that comment about, going and buying a piece of packaged software, I think you're absolutely right. There are lots of packaged software solutions, and a lot of times that's absolutely perfect. What's interesting is we see quite a lot of companies where they've gone that route and it ends up being a round peg in a square hole. It doesn't quite fit. It constrains their business, and in some cases can end up spending quite a lot of money on the licenses for those sort of packages. So the good news is that to build a bespoke solution used to be a very expensive exercise. Today, there are actually much more cost-effective ways of doing that. And as you correctly say, we're not so much interested in just building a project and saying, thank you very much, here we go. We're interested in working with clients in partnership with them and build them and look after something over the long term.
And I think one of the key things here, and I've worked with a number of companies involved with tech, and just setting out on the journey and building the team, there's so many things that can go wrong, from people you hire end up not being the right people or suddenly disappear because they're not the right cultural fit, or they've had another opportunity. Whatever you set out to plan and build, you could easily get that wrong. I think there's a lot of examples of mistakes in building technology that just have been throwing money away, really. And I think if someone doesn't get technology, doesn't understand how to hire technologists, I think it can be a really, really big challenge to go out and do. And if you think, okay, if we need to hire a team, you really need to think about, CTO resource in the business that can understand the kind of people you need and how to give them direction. And it's an incredibly competitive place to go and hire people at the moment. There's obviously loads of reports around talent shortages in multiple sectors, but getting decent software developers that are affordable is a massive challenge as well at the moment. So what are the alternatives, Shaun, do you think? What would you say the key things to developing a partnership with someone that's going to be out of the business but working with you on the development?
Okay, so I think when you're looking at the partnership, the first thing I would say is the traditional model, whether you do it in-house or outsource, is as the client, you carry 100% of the cost and 100% of the risk. So if you're hiring people, you're paying people, as an employee. If you're outsourcing, you're very often paying a day rate. We think there's a different model, and we believe there should be a different model, which is where your development partner shares the risk with you. And the way to do that is to align the remuneration of your software development partner with the success of the project and driving real business, tangible business outcomes. That, I think, is the main thing. There's also a lot of papers out there which give people advice on looking for an outsourced partner. If you're a large company, should you go for a large outsourcer or a small? And I think the gist of that is try and find an outsourced partner that's of a similar size and a similar philosophy as your own business, which is, human nature. It's about building relationships and about having the right relationship with your partner.
No, agreed. And I think that's one of the big challenges, because this is anyone looking to build technology, the first phase of it, the first instance is one thing, but it's going to change, right? And however good you are at specifying what you want in terms of a piece of technology, you're never going to get it right. It needs to be altered or tweaked, in some way, and that is working with someone with a joined outcome, which whether that's based on a revenue share or based on paying on the final result. I think that's what people should be pushing for to get value, and making sure that they understand what that looks like from a commercial perspective as well.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's very much our model. We're big believers in that. And I think the more that our remuneration can be linked to the success of the project, the better for everyone.
And I guess this, not just in technology, we see this in other services. I think people that aren't rewarded on, when you're providing a service to a company, whether it's building technology or marketing or other services, I think there's this automatic kind of thing of, well, we're just going to pay you whatever. There's got to be some kind of result-driven metric or measure or something that's tangible that people are working towards. And I think what I've seen in various spaces, it's unusual to get a technology partner that will kind of have that partnership where they're paid on the outcome or they're paid on a potential revenue share, which the way you guys do things at SCAD Software is quite unique. And I think if nothing else, if you're comparing one outsourced developer to you guys, it's worth asking some of those questions as to, well, how do I de-risk this for myself, and how is someone like SCAD versus someone else going to do that? And you've obviously joined SCAD and part of the international expansion. Have you, this obviously struck out to you, right? You wouldn't have joined this and talk passionately about it if you didn't see this as an opportunity. So why do you think others don't do this? Why do you think other technology partners don't do this kind of revenue share or de-risk it for their client so much?
Well, in their defense, I think one of the challenges, if you're building traditional software, increasingly today, you need large teams of specialist people. And they end up building an application that's got a lot of source code in it. And part of the challenge is that once you have a large volume of source code in an application, that's an awful lot that needs to be kept current, that needs to be worked through, that it adds complexity. And we've been very fortunate. We've got a very innovative way of building software that enables us to reduce down that size of the amount of source code we put in an application dramatically. So it ends up with an application that's much easier to build, it's much easier to maintain, and it's much easier to add new features. And we don't need an army of people to do it. So we're very, in defense of others, we're in that very fortunate position that because of the way we build software, it enables us to be in that position. And I think what struck me, I mean, I've been in the world of IT all my life, but I've been both a client of IT and I've also been a vendor, if you like. So I've seen both sides of the fence. And I think anything that enables companies to build software fast and deliver value quickly is critical, because I think more and more I'm seeing a world where business is moving faster than IT is able to keep up and deliver. And we have to find a way to bridge that gap so that your IT capability can move at the speed of your business.
And I know you guys, maybe we can talk about this in a bit more detail. You've got a kind of special sauce, if you like, in terms of how you guys are writing code. What do you think will be the challenge when, as you say, businesses are needing to move quicker than their IT developers or IT software can change? What do you think the big risks there?
Well, the big risk is, first off, I've got to hire more people. And as you said in your opening comment, actually hiring skilled developers at the moment is very difficult and getting increasingly expensive. The second thing, there is a misnomer that says, if I've got all the source code, it's easy for me to bring in a developer to then read that source code. The truth is, if you look at people who spend their life building software, they'll tell you that more often than not, when you bring a new developer into the team, because it's so complex to get your head round this huge volume of source code, and because different teams work in different ways, they'll often end up rewriting bits or even all of that source code. So being able to translate that source code is not an easy thing that people think it might be. And I think that's something to consider.
And that comes from if you've got to replace people because they've left, or you're looking to expand it and you need to throw more bodies at it. That makes sense. So that's.
And I think just the other thing, Rob, is that there's quite a lot of evidence that suggests that in traditional software development, the developer or developers can spend up to 30% of their time just keeping the code updated. And that's because all the programming languages that you use to build this keep changing. So you've got to keep up with those changes in order to keep the lights on. Otherwise, you get into this technical debt, or code goes out of date. So again, in defense of the traditional way of doing things, it's no wonder that as you build more software, you're going to have more and more people keeping the lights on if you follow the traditional approach.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, just to talk in a bit more detail about your non-traditional approach, your unique approach. And I know some people might not get this at all because they're not technologists. And I think if they were going to get some kind of quote for a project from you guys compared to someone else, I think there'd be a vast difference in what they're being told they can get. And I think that's one thing someone can use as a comparable. If someone is more technology savvy, or they've maybe got an existing team and they're looking to accelerate the changes they make, or maybe add on additional software, in the most simple terms, how would you explain to someone your approach versus traditional approach, which would get them thinking, do you know what, we should look at this?
I'd answer that two ways, Rob. Firstly, technically what we do is we use metadata, which is to think of data in a database rather than writing source code. But probably a better way of thinking about it is, I'll draw you an analogy between what we do and what Tesla have done with the Model Y production of their new car. What Tesla have done is they've taken an established manufacturing technique, which is called die casting, and they have transformed the way they manufacture that car. And they've taken what used to be 70 components that all had to be welded together, and they now create a single die cast of the chassis. So with that, so they've basically taken the existing methodology and they've just applied it in a more creative and different way. but it's fundamentally changed their business and made their cars more competitive, changed their cost profile, etc. We've done exactly the same thing. Using metadata is not a new way of building software. Lots of people use metadata, but we're the only people that have built a complete software development environment that is driven really by the metadata. And it's that's enabled us to drastically reduce the size of the application we build for clients, which reduces the cost, which reduces the risk, which makes it easier to change, et cetera, et cetera.
And for someone, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to do a project and you just want the end result, I think, yeah, this is something to explore and look at the time expected and the cost involved. If you're looking to add to a current piece of software and use you guys, for example, as a partner, there's going to be some questions which I know come up, questions I've had in the past with you. You know, there's obviously people already in development roles within a business that might be thinking, hang on a minute, this is going to take away what I'm doing. I'm assuming you can work in partnership with those people, but what are the real risks to traditional developers and their process compared to having something disruptive like what you're doing in your approach?
Well, there is definitely a perceived risk, which is that I don't have the source code in-house. And I say it's a perceived risk because I mentioned before, the truth is trying to give a set of source code to a new set of developers, more often than not, they're going to develop it, they're going to redevelop it anyway. But if you're concerned with that, we actually do have a guaranteed exit option. So we would take the application and we can translate it back into source code of your choosing, and you can go and do whatever you like with it. So that's a question that comes up, but it's more perception rather than reality in terms of a real risk, I think. And that's probably the main thing that people are concerned about.
And the thing is with this, the risk of the code that you've built compared to your own code. I mean, people in a business could move on. As you say, some code will always have to be rewritten, which again, there's no real benefit there. It's just something that happens. I think the only thing I'd be saying to people listening to this is look at the options, look at the choices. I'm a numbers guy from a finance perspective, so I'd be questioning how much are you looking to invest in a project, whether it be IT or whether it be a marketing campaign or anything that you're doing. And I think the question I'd be having is, well, you've got to put these two things on the table, something like what you and SCAD Software are offering versus something more traditional, and line them up and just question why, what is the difference here? And I think prepared to be open to a new way of doing things. And I'm pretty confident the price point will be making a decision easier as well from projects I've heard you guys have been working on. I think the big thing is, trying to get your head around this isn't necessarily new in that, as you say, it's meta level data you're using, but it's just done in a way that others haven't developed, right? That development process you go through isn't developed by others. So how would you convince someone, say someone with their CFO hat is saying, okay, well, this is a better result, takes less time, there's less cost, and the risk of the contract to develop this is more in our favor from a risk perspective. How would you compare that to someone that's a through and through traditional developer thinking, hang on, this doesn't sound right, or this isn't what I've been used to? What would you be saying?
Well, I think the first point I would say is, at the end of the day, maybe it does sound too good to be true, but put us to the test, because at the end of the day, we don't get paid unless we deliver. Unlike any other approach where you pay regardless, I should add. So, the proof is in the pudding. I can show you countless projects that we've developed. And I think most clients come to us primarily because of the speed at which we can do things. I think the longest project we've done has taken us 8 months, and that was where we recreated a full ERP system for a client.
So I think with that then, and from other conversations we've had, I think anyone looking to kind of quickly develop something as a proof of concept, or just get something out there working, but de-risking it for themselves, or someone looking to rapidly add something to their existing software, using a partner like you guys could really help accelerate that and do it at a rate of investment that's going to be affordable as well. No, great. We're going to surely run out of time for this, and I want to just, as you say, people need to try different things and explore it, and compare your offering to someone else. What would be your lasting 2 thoughts to anyone that's looking to do a piece of software development? What would you encourage them to go and think and question?
I think if you're going to outsource your development, then I would think about the relationship that you want with that outsourcer. And if you want someone to really work hand in glove with your team and be in it for the long term, then we would be an option. If you just want to build a project and move on to the next, then there are lots of people that can do that.
Great. Okay, I think that's good. A good thought to leave this on, and hopefully get some people thinking. And if they're interested in finding out more, they should get in touch, right, Shaun?
Yeah, lovely. Always happy to have a chat with anyone.
It all starts with a conversation, and
it does
lose from that first conversation. Well, Shaun, thanks. Good to talk to you, Rob. And hopefully we'll get some good insights out to people through this. Thanks.
Thanks
for listening. If you'd like more information about the topics discussed in this podcast, then you can find us on our website at moveyourbusinessforward.com.